how do you think US society would change with a good basic income in place? What would change?
What would change? I mean, so much could change. There's a book that's come out recently by a policy analyst named Heather McGhee called The Sum of Us. And I don't know if this has sort of made it over to Australia, but the basic question she starts with is, why can't we have nice things? Right? Why can't Americans have nice things? By which she means healthcare, um, swimming pools, municipal swimming pools, uh, good public education. And her answer as to why we can't have those things is because race and racism and racial segregation, racial politics in the United States has meant not only that these things are denied to African Americans, but that in fact, elites would rather deny them to everyone, whites and blacks, than include blacks in them. So, basic income can affect that sort of racial politics in some ways, but you can, if you characterize a basic income in different ways and not about the racial gap, you maybe can get around this, right? Which is to say, well, we're just going to start giving people enough money that we can start to have nice things again, right? We can start to see each other not as competitors for scarce resources, but as members of the same community where my economic activity, helps you, right? It doesn't hurt you, it helps you. So I think that in a country with a basic income, we can have more of those nice things, right? Children can can grow up not living in poverty. We can maybe work a little bit less, right? We work more than anybody else in the world. Maybe we can work a little bit less. Maybe we can go to the doctor before we're deathly ill. Maybe we can have access to better food so that we can have a better diet and reduce diet-related illnesses in this country. I hope that it would lead to less polarization in our politics than we have now. That's a tall order, and again, one thing like a basic income isn't necessarily going to be able to affect those changes. But I think a lot of our politics are based on this fear that any other group getting ahead is going to hurt us. And so I think if we can shift the rhetoric to show that actually lifting us all up means that we're all better off, then we can go a ways towards reducing that political polarization as well. I'm not sure if that's an entirely satisfactory answer.
Yeah, because one of the things I'm bumping up against is because all the planning decisions that are made, they're made for a wage laboring society with a level of poverty, with a predictable behavior of people going to work, coming back. They're going to be earning this much so they can afford this much and so on. Like, is a basic income going to, be thrown out of the conversation because all the planning hasn't factored it in? That's kind of...
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, I do think that the pandemic has changed a little bit of the way we see work and experience work, and how we see some of the work that goes into being able to work, right? I mean, all the little kids who are popping up in their parents' Zoom frames, in meetings. We hadn't thought about all the care that is required to allow adults to go to work, right? And we hadn't thought about how that's being provided or who's doing it, or at what cost. So we're having that conversation now. And I do think a lot of my work is focused on gender-based or feminist-based reasons for a basic income. So I think that that's a conversation that is starting to emerge from the stimulus as well. So I do think that, as I said, we have this jobs approach to economic security. And, if that approach were working, then we wouldn't need to change it. But it's not working. And I think that we're at a point where, because basic income is a conversation in so many other places, because the pandemic has really highlighted, right, this one particularly egregious difference between us and other advanced countries, right, the lack of healthcare and the effects that it's had during the pandemic. I think we're at a moment where we're willing to rethink this, and I think it's reflected in the fact that President Biden has characterized infrastructure as including care, as including support for people who provide care for dependents, for the disabled, and for the elderly. That's pretty transformative that an American president, a male American president, is saying that. Not that we've had any female American presidents, but that that a male politician is talking about that, I think is pretty transformative of the conversation in the United States. And you see that there are economic forces that are struggling against him. They don't want him to succeed in expanding that definition of infrastructure to include care. But I think he's going to be successful.